Before we dive into today's main topic, just a quick note for all you history buffs listening, we really want to recommend checking out Hui Wang's A History of China series. It's available now on Amazon.
Oh, that's a fantastic series.
It really is. It's incredibly comprehensive, gives this amazing journey through Chinese civilization. And the latest volume, the Liao Dynasty, it sheds so much light on a really pivotal, often overlooked era in East Asian history.
Absolutely. Crucial period.
Yeah, definitely a must-read. You can get an ebook or paperback.
Great recommendation. And, speaking of major new chapters, today we're opening one in the tech world, OpenAI's release of GPT-5.
Right, the big one.
Exactly. And the question everyone's asking, the one we're going to dig into is this thing a revolutionary leap forward, or is it maybe more of an incremental effect?
That's the core question, yeah.
So our mission today is to really unpack the insights from our sources, figure out what actually makes GPT-5 different, and, what its potential impact could be across the board.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. The launch itself.
Yeah.
Because that was maybe the first big surprise. Unlike, Sora or even GPT-4o, remember those, they often felt like a digital stampede. Servers crashing, slowdowns.
A little chaos sometimes.
Right. But GPT-5's launch was, weirdly smooth. Immediate access, faster responses, even if you were on the free tier. It just felt different from minute one.
And what's fascinating, and our sources really dig into this, is why. It looks like OpenAI made some pretty significant improvements in how they allocate compute power in real time.
Oh.
Think of it like, a much smarter air traffic control system for their servers. Simple requests don't end up hogging massive resources anymore.
Preventing those digital traffic jams we saw before.
Exactly. It stops that pile up. It seems like a fundamental shift in architecture, and that directly translates into that smooth experience you mentioned.
And then there's the second point, which honestly, it almost felt a bit eerie. The lack of widespread panic among AI startups. Remember, after previous big OpenAI drops, you could almost feel the anxiety from smaller companies.
Oh yeah, the "are we obsolete now" feeling.
Totally. That fear, their whole business model just got wiped out overnight.
Yeah.
This time, it was much more muted. Not the same alarm bells.
Which really makes you wonder, and this is a question for you listening, does this quieter reaction combined with the smooth launch just mean it's, an incremental step? Or are we maybe seeing the first real signs of a shift, moving from that kind of Wild West AI phase to something more structured, like an API economy settling in?
Interesting way to put it.
It suggests maybe that foundational layer, the core models, might be stabilizing a bit. And the real action, the competition, is moving further up the stack.
So, okay, calm launch, calmer industry reaction. But what about the actual power under the hood? Let's talk performance benchmarks. Numbers aren't everything we know, but they give us context.
Right.
And our sources flagged 2 tests where GPT-5 was actually beaten by Grok 4, Elon Musk's model. That probably surprised a few people.
It certainly did. Let's dig into that first one. The ARC-AGI test. Now, this isn't your standard benchmark.
Right, it's different.
Very different. It's designed to measure common sense reasoning, complex problem solving, basically a model's raw thinking ability. And crucially, no internet, no external tools allowed. The model is totally on its own.
Just its internal brain, so to speak.
Exactly. Pure self-contained thought. And in that test, GPT-5's base model scored 9.9%. Grok 4's thinking model, 15.9%.
Okay, that is a noticeable gap. So what's the story there? Why would GPT-5 lag on a pure thinking test like that?
Well, the nuance here is really key, and it tells you something about their design philosophies. GPT-5 had to use its base model for this specific test. Why? Because it's more advanced thinking and thinking pro modes. They're built to call external tools almost by default.
Oh, okay. Like reaching for a calculator.
Precisely. Think of it like that. A genius might solve a complex problem purely in their head. That's the ARC-AGI ideal. But in the real world, that same genius would probably grab a calculator or use software, right? To speed things up, check their work.
Makes sense.
ARC-AGI deliberately bans those calculators. Grok 4, on the other hand, seems able to do more complex multi-step reasoning without needing those external tool calls built in. That's why it could use its thinking model.
So Grok might be better at that specific, constrained, pure thinking task.
Right. But it's important to remember that relying only on a model's internal reasoning with no tools, that's actually less common in real-world applications. Most tasks benefit from or even require tool integration.
Okay, that context is crucial. A very specific test highlighting architectural differences. But what about the other test, the final human test, where they could use everything? full power.
Right, the gloves-off scenario.
Yeah.
In that test, with both models running at peak, all tools available, GPT-5 Pro scored 42%, Grok 4 Heavy, 44.4%.
So still a slight edge for Grok there.
A slight edge, yeah. Much smaller, though. It shows the gap narrows considerably when both models can use their full arsenals.
Okay, so beyond the benchmarks, which are clearly complex, GPT-5 brought some really big functional changes that users will notice day to day. First, and this feels huge, the unified large model.
Oh, this is absolutely a game changer for usability. Seriously. It gets rid of that whole confusing step where you had to pick between GPT-4 or GPT-4 or whatever version.
Right, which one would need for this?
Gone. Now you just have one entry point. The system itself figures out whether to use the standard mode or kick into thinking or thinking pro based on your prompt. It adapts automatically.
And that thinking mode usage, it doesn't count against free limits.
Correct, which is a massive plus for free users. They get access to that advanced reasoning without burning through their allowance. For the API side, you're mainly looking at GPT-5, GPT-5 Mini, and Nano, no specific Pro API model mentioned, and developers get fine-grained control over token use for thinking.
And tokens are just like the words, parts of words the AI uses.
Basically, yeah, the building blocks it processes and generates.
That unified model sounds like a massive simplification. Makes interacting much smoother. What about the context window and multitasking?
So GPT-5 comes with a 256K token context window.
Yeah.
It's pretty big, enough to process a whole book, maybe several long papers.
It's substantial.
It is. Though worth noting, Gemini 2.5 Pro offers that huge 1 million token window 4 times bigger. But using context that large can get pricey fast.
Trade-offs.
Always trade-offs. But what's really neat with GPT-5 is how it handles different tasks within the same chat. You don't have to manually switch modes if you want it to draw something or write some code.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you just ask. If you're chatting and say, okay, now generate an image of us or help me debug this Python script, it just does it right there.
Yep.
Seamlessly. No switching tools or opening new windows.
Okay, that is convenient.
Yeah.
Now, coding. That's a huge area of interest. I know I've heard some early buzz about maybe some formatting quirks. But overall, is GPT-5 really stepping up to challenge models like Anthropic's Claude, which programmers often like?
That's a really good question because, yeah, the coding space is super competitive. GPT-5 definitely shows strong coding chops. It's up there in the top tier. But you're right, some early testers did mention minor formatting things like, inconsistent indentation, which can be irritating for devs.
Yeah, clean code matters.
It does. And Claude, historically, has had a really good reputation among programmers for performance and sticking to coding conventions. What's interesting, though, and our sources mentioned this anecdote, OpenAI made a point of showing off GPT-5's coding with the CEO of Cursor, the AI coding platform.
Right, I know Cursor.
Which is interesting because Cursor had previously relied pretty heavily on Anthropic's models. There's clearly some intense competition there, maybe even poaching developers back and forth. It's a real battle for developer loyalty.
Fascinating behind-the-scenes dynamic. Okay, this next feature sounds really different, maybe a step towards AI feeling more personal. The personality customization.
This is genuinely innovative, I think. It takes personalization way beyond just remembering your name. GPT-5 gives you 5 core personas to start with, like optimistic and flexible, critical, mechanical, listener, and tech enthusiast.
So you pick a base personality.
Exactly. But then you can go deeper. You can fine-tune traits, tell it to be more witty or maybe more empathetic. You can really shape how it interacts with you.
Wow.
And here's the really surprising bit. Our sources say it can actually remember your personal likes and dislikes across different chat sessions.
Seriously, it learns about you over time.
Apparently so, which means future conversations should feel even more tailored and, natural. It remembers what you prefer.
That's quite a leap. But let's talk reliability, because for serious use, especially in sensitive fields like healthcare or law, the biggest issue has always been hallucinations, right? Making stuff up.
Absolutely. Critical point.
So this reduction in hallucinations they're claiming, is it a game changer? Are we finally past that hurdle, or is it still something you really need to watch out for?
It's a significant improvement based on the data, but maybe not quite game over for vigilance yet. Sources say hallucinations are down by 30% to 40%. That's a big drop.
That is substantial.
It means the model is considerably more reliable, less likely to confidently state incorrect facts. That makes it much more usable for things like medical info summaries, legal research, financial analysis areas where accuracy is paramount.
Okay. And how does it handle content it's not supposed to talk about? Restricted stuff.
That's also changed. Instead of just refusing, it often gives partial responses now, or explains why it can't give a full answer. That's quite different from Grok, which is known for being much less restricted, sometimes giving unfiltered, maybe less cautious answers.
So more reliable, more nuanced on restrictions.
Yeah.
Still need to be careful, but a definite step up.
A substantial step towards trustworthiness, yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears from what it can do to what it costs. Because the pricing strategy for GPT-5 users is, well, it's notable, and maybe a bit confusing at first glance.
It is definitely notable. OpenAI has structured it in tiers, clearly designed to shape how people use it and impact the market.
Right. Break it down for us.
Okay, so free users, you get up to 5 hours a day of GPT-5 or maybe 10 specific queries before it switches you to the smaller, faster GPT-5 mini model.
Okay, so decent amount for free.
Seems like it. Then plus users, the ones paying the monthly subscription, they get 50 GPT-5 queries every 3 hours.
A cap, but a fairly high one.
Right. And then there's the Pro plan. That's $200 a month. Steep, but it offers nearly unlimited access.
$200, wow.
Yeah. But here's a really interesting tidbit from the sources. OpenAI might actually be losing money on those Pro users.
Losing money. How does that make sense?
The thinking seems to be it's less about direct profit from that tier and more about loyalty, keeping their biggest power users, their enterprise clients, locked into the ecosystem. It's a retention play for their most valuable customers.
Interesting strategy. Keep the whales happy, even at a loss. What about API pricing, though? For developers building on top of this, that's often the real signal of market strategy.
And the API pricing for the base model is aggressive. Shockingly aggressive, some might say. It's 1.25 per million input tokens and $10 per million output tokens.
How does that stack up?
Compared to rivals, Gemini only matches that price for really small inputs. Grok is generally more expensive. And Anthropic's top Claude models, roughly double the cost.
Whoa. So OpenAI is seriously undercutting them.
Massively. This isn't just competing on price. It feels like a strategic move to potentially starve competitors. Making the foundational model so cheap forces rivals into a tough spot. They either have to operate at unsustainable losses themselves, or maybe pivot their whole business model. It could really accelerate consolidation in the market, making it super hard for smaller players to compete at that core model level. It pushes innovation up the stack, away from building the base models themselves.
And this aggressive pricing, combined with everything else, surely this sparks a wider price war. What does this mean for the whole market?
It almost certainly puts immense pressure on everyone else. And don't forget, Google's Gemini 3 is expected probably by the end of the year. That's going to heat things up even more.
Right, more competition coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You look at the landscape. Grok has its niche, that unrestricted computation, but a smaller user base. Anthropic is well-respected, great models, but faces resource limits and higher prices. And then you've got efforts, particularly in China, focusing on open-sourcing models as a way to compete. It's a complex battlefield.
So let's circle back to our big question. Is GPT-5 more than just incremental change? Based on all this, the unified model, the adaptation, the huge drop in hallucinations, the pricing strategy, I feel like the answer has to be yes, right? This points to something more fundamental shifting.
I think that's right. It feels like a very significant shift. And maybe the most fascinating part is how it's drawing a clearer line between the foundational model providers, the OpenAIs, the Googles, and the application developers building on top of them.
How do you mean?
Well, with models becoming more stable, more reliable, fewer hallucinations, startups and businesses can now focus more confidently on solving their specific industry problems, creating unique apps, unique user experiences. They don't have to live in constant fear that the next big model release will just instantly make their core tech obsolete.
Ah, okay. It's like the foundational guys are finally building a reliable operating system.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. They're perfecting the OS, the infrastructure. And now developers can really get creative building the killer apps on top without worrying the OS itself will completely change underneath them every 6 months.
That really does feel like a structured new era for AI then.
Yeah.
Big players battling it out at the foundational level, the OS level.
Just competing fiercely there.
Yeah, while application developers get a more stable platform to innovate and thrive within that framework.
Precisely. Which leads to a really important question for you listening. With this new stability, this new structure emerging, how will you use it? How will you leverage it to innovate in your field or gain knowledge or build something new? What possibilities does this open up for you?
It is definitely an exciting time for AI. Lots to think about.
Absolutely.
And before we wrap up, just one more reminder. Do check out Hui Wang's A History of China series, The new volume, The Liao Dynasty, is out now in ebook and paperback. Really fantastic stuff for history lovers.
A great recommendation to end on. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
We'll be back next time with more fascinating topics and, hopefully, some more surprising insights.